All right, we're live. Good morning. This is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm attorney Vince Davis, and we're joined by a guest host today, Cassandra Woodard. Hi, Cassandra. How are you?
Hello. Good.
And seems like we have another very special guest. Is it Ariana Hubbard?
Yes.
Good morning, Miss Hubbard. How are you?
Good morning. I'm okay. How are you?
Good. What part of the country are you from?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, you're just local. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, you're on the show today, and I assume that you're on the show because you have some connection with CPS.
I do. I do.
Why don't
hmm
you tell me about how you are involved with CPS?
Well, my case was recently closed as of this year of September, but it was a 2-year long case. Got started by an ER worker. And I mean, the lies that were in not just her report, but every report that was issued was falsified in a lot of the sense. So, I was put in this situation where my kids were, being used as a weapon um, to blackmail me into trying to get me to do whatever they needed me to do. And I was trying to, facilitate, like I've got rights, but they don't like listening to parents that say that. So it was a long, awful experience. And I honestly am still in disbelief to this day that that was actually something that could transpire. I didn't think that DCFS was in any case, corrupt or anything like that. I thought they were there to help, and they're not. So I just wanted to let, any parent know that's out there, like if you ever come in contact with these people, get an attorney. Don't ever speak to them without one,
May I ask you some questions about your case?
Of course, absolutely.
Is it Ariana?
Yes.
Okay. Ariana, was your case in Monterey Park or in Lancaster?
Monterey Park.
Okay. And just so people know, the current presiding judge of the juvenile court has opened up a court, the juvenile dependency court, also, I think in Pomona now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I just heard that they're opening up another courtroom. I think it's going to be in Compton. So they're going to make,
Wow.
the juvenile court, they're going to spread it out, make it more
Mhm.
accessible, geographically speaking, to people who have cases.
Right. Well, that's good. I mean, at least that's something that's going to happen, because I feel like they're a little corrupt in that courthouse.
So you have your children back?
Their dad got them back. I have all this other stipulations that come with it, because at the end of my case, I had done the testing that they wanted me to do. I completed all of my case plan, except for when I got my job. It was a brand new job. I couldn't make it to the testing sites in time before they closed. I was working until 6:30 at night. All the testing sites close at 6:45. So I was trying to make it down to Van Nuys in 15 minutes from Stevenson Ranch. So anybody that knows my area knows that that's very hard to do, to get down to that area at that time, because of traffic, whatever, whatnot. And I told them, I will test weekly for you. I will test on Fridays. I get out early on Fridays. I will test every week for you guys on Fridays. Like I can make it down there on that day. No problem. Nope. That's not random enough. That's what my worker said to me. I said, well, you can pick the Fridays. Like, I don't care, like anything. Nope. Still not random enough. So it was kind of like I was doomed from the get-go. Like, they just didn't want me to succeed. So as of right now, I still have to go and do 10 consecutive clean drug tests, which is fine with me. Even though I did it already for 6.5 months, I'll do it until whenever they want me to do it. That was never the issue. It was just, I had gotten a new job, didn't want to randomly leave my new job, early every 2 weeks. That doesn't look good at a new job. All I asked was for 90 days. Just give me my first 90 days of testing Fridays. Every single Friday, I'll do it. No problem. Just for the first 90 days. They insisted that I was being insubordinate. So, I lost my case with that. I also don't feel like my representation was very good either.
Did you have a private attorney or
I
court-appointed
did.
attorney?
I did
Yeah.
I went for the private, but I don't think he had enough experience. He didn't put any of my social workers on the stand, and there's just a lot of things I noticed about him that I wish I would have, caught beforehand.
How did you find your private attorney?
He was a referral through another attorney that I had for my ex at the time. He was going through immigration stuff. So I had that attorney. He was like, here, I'm not a dependency court attorney, so I don't know how any of that stuff works, but here's somebody that I know. So, dependency court attorneys are very, very, very expensive. So I went with him because he wasn't terrible and I could afford it. And, that's what, you get what you pay for.
I mention that to people all the time. Some people get offended by that. And it's
Oh,
not a rule that I made up. It's just
no.
what I've experienced in my life, living 64 years in the United States. It seems to be what our economy is based on.
Mm-hmm.
How many children were involved?
3. Mm-hmm.
Before the case started, did you have custody of those children?
I did. Full
And
soul and physical.
and were you and the father separated at that time before the case started?
We were not separated at that time. We were actually trying to work out our family dynamic, trying to, do what was good for the kids. And we were working through our stuff. We were going to therapy. We wanted our kids to be able to feel like, their mom and their dad were at a good point in their relationship and everything like that. So we were trying to work things out between he and I. And then they came in and now we are no longer doing that. So,
It's interesting that I see this in a lot of cases, not every case, but I see this in a lot of cases. When the CPS agents get involved, they somehow encourage the split of the family.
yes, that was in a lot of cases, in a lot of our situation. The second that he got into family preservation, which in the name, states, oh, we're going to preserve your family, right? That's not at all what it was. It was they got to do the family preservation and I was the one left out. They wanted to make sure that he didn't need me in their life anymore. And they even put my oldest son in therapy to help him cope with being without his mom and making it okay. It even says it in that report. They worded it that way. So,
Well, Sylvie on the go has a question. Are you able to see your children now?
as of now, I am. They really did limit my abilities as far as that. They made it so I couldn't go to my mother's home to visit. So now I have to do it in a neutral setting with an approved monitor and everything like that, which I am trying to get my ducks in a row to change. But as of my current situation, I have to figure out something else first before I can go and attack that situation.
Okay, so just to let you know, couple things. You said that there were a lot of untruths or lies in the social worker reports.
Mm-hmm.
If you and your attorney didn't get a chance to address those situations during the juvenile dependency case, now that the case is over, you may not want to pursue it, but you do have a civil rights case against the social worker for writing
Right.
things that were knowingly false. Okay.
Right.
If
Mm-hmm.
she knew that they were false, you can sue her. If she didn't know, it's probably going to be a difficult case because social workers, unfortunately, enjoy qualified immunity for
Right.
lawsuits. Especially here in California, and I think it's true in every state.
Right.
So I give you a little background on that because I was doing this type of law when that case came out. In the late 80s, a case from the United States Supreme Court came out and held that a law, and I think it was from Washington, that gave social workers a type of immunity where they couldn't be sued for, very specific, different things. The Supreme Court held that to be constitutional, and they voted 5-4 that it was constitutional for the state of Washington to limit a social worker's liability. So very close vote, right?
Yeah,
Very,
it
very
is.
close. But They gave them that, that's the law of the land, and we have to abide by it.
Mhm.
Now, people can change that by voting, but no one has changed that by voting that I'm aware of in any state. So
Wow.
here in California, you can only sue a social worker and win if you prove malice or fraud.
Right. Mhm.
Okay. So if a social worker negligently reports something that's not true, unfortunately, they have qualified immunity that prevents them or prevents you from winning a case against them.
Right.
Now, recently, and this video is all over YouTube, so you can find it. In the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals that covers California, um, there is a case where someone sued a social worker in Orange County, I think.
Hmm.
And one of the things that the social worker's attorney argued in front of the uh, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals was that social workers who lie or get on the stand and commit perjury,
Mhm.
that they should be covered by the qualified immunity. It sounds it sounds bizarre, right?
This is just
And
infuriating.
and the three judges on the case were, I believe, they were all conservative judges. You
Mm.
know, intended conservative judges tend to go with the government. Okay, tend, not
Right.
all, not. But these three judges were outraged that she would even come to court and argue that.
Right.
I mean, and
Right.
as I recall the video, they were visibly outraged.
Oh,
And
well,
I
that's
was
good to know.
and I was thinking, who sent that young woman attorney to the Ninth Circuit to argue something like that?
Mhm.
To argue that if you commit perjury,
It's okay. Don't worry.
that it's okay, you can't be sued.
Right.
And they weren't having it.
Thank God.
And so suing a social worker is a tough thing to do.
Mhm.
Um, but you got to be able to show that malice and that fraud.
Oh yeah. I think
And
I could easily show that. I mean, it's because
for,
it wasn't just my worker, it was the DI and then every worker after that.
so if you have evidence of that, that's something that you might want to consider. Talk to an attorney about it.
Definitely.
Um, Talk to Miss G about it. And by the way, good morning, Miss G. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I missed you. Hi, baby.
Um, so that's something that you should consider. But this is the other thing I wanted to tell you. Now that your case is closed and the father has custody, the only way that you can get custody or visitation back, unmonitored overnights, that type of thing, is to go to the family law court.
Right, which they filed that in an official,
Right.
their findings in the family court. I just got a copy of that 3 days ago.
Right. So
So
now the law on changing a juvenile court closing custody order has gotten very tight, and
great.
they make it a little bit more difficult. Listen, in the old days, you could go to you could go to family law court and basically tell the judge, hey, judge, they don't know what they're doing over there at juvenile dependency court. Let's revisit this whole thing, and maybe we should, you know, give the kids back to the mom or something like that.
Mhm.
But now it's very tight, and there's judicial findings that have been made that the court in family law court is supposed to follow.
Mhm.
So you're stuck with that unless you get some type of judgment that says that was all fraud, or
Right.
you show the court that these orders that were made, now everything has been satisfied.
Right.
You've had what do they call, a lobotomy, and
Right.
you're a different person.
Right.
Okay.
Brand new.
So you can do that in juvenile court, and we've done that. We've been successful in doing that. But if you and the father aren't getting along and it just becomes harder to do.
Yeah.
One of the things, and I can't say this for sure, but it's something that I suspect. Social workers are trained. I think they get monthly training. They're highly trained, and people don't realize this. They're
Doesn't
highly
seem that
trained.
way.
Oh no, they're highly trained individuals. You just don't think it, and you don't realize it, and
Mhm.
you're lulled into a false sense of security.
Mm-hmm.
Social workers, forgive me, Miss G, are highly trained and can be very smart individuals because
Oh yeah.
when they do their case, they're doing it with the direction of a supervisor,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a deputy,
Yes.
and sometimes their own attorneys, the county council.
Yes.
So
I
look,
have
they
close ties with all of them.
they know what they're doing. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now whether it's right or not, that's a whole different story, a whole different discussion. But they know what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes when they speak to couples like you and your ex or the father, they do things and they plant seeds to
Oh
cause
yeah.
the the divisiveness.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old strategy, and it works, and it's tried and true. And the strategy is divide and conquer,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of people think, oh, that's just some fairy tale bullshit. No, that's for real.
No,
You
it's
go
not.
into
It's very true.
you go to in any social organization like a marriage or a relationship, and if you separate the people, they each become easy pickings
Mm-hmm.
for the attacker, and in this case the attacker would be CPS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so that's what happens, and that's why I say a lot of these cases I see these people promoting breaking up. I've had people tell me,
They did.
I've seen this on my own in my own cases. They'll tell the mother, "Hey, if you don't break up or divorce the father, you're not getting the kids back."
Yeah. That's what they did in my case.
And sometimes I'm sitting in court and it's said like, "Oh yeah, that's the law. I mean, we can say that, we can do that." That's not the law.
Right.
The law is called family reunification.
Right.
That means everyone. Now,
Mm-hmm.
granted, in some of these cases, maybe the mother shouldn't get back together with the father. I don't know.
Right.
That's not my thing. But it's a personal thing. But I don't think the social worker should be promoting or telling you, "Hey, ma'am, you're not going to get your kids back unless you leave the father and divorce him."
Right.
I've had people want to hire me to do their divorce, and I'm like, "Why do you want to?" Like, where'd you get this idea from? The social worker told me I have to divorce my husband. Can you handle that
Mhm.
for me, Mr. Davis? Well, first of all, hold on, okay? Because that's not the law, right? And we'll just have a discussion about it. So, that's probably, or not probably, it may have happened in your case,
Yeah.
you know,
They
and
they didn't just divide that part of my, I mean, it was everybody. They definitely tried to exile me from my family in a lot of the sense because I had a strong, strong, strong family unit, always
Mhm.
have, and they wanted that separation for sure.
and people don't even realize that it's happening.
No, I was blindsided by it because within 6 months of him joining this family preservation thing, he was like, "I want to be with other people, and I don't want to try and work this out with you." And
Yeah.
it was devastating for me because I had already lost my kids, and now I'm losing. They moved him into my parents' house, and made me stay where I
Into
was
into your parents' house.
into my parents' house. Right.
Right.
Hmm.
Here's a question I want to answer. Melanie says, "How can we remove their qualified immunity? Can you please explain where it originated from or why they have it and we don't?"
Hmm.
Melanie, let me try to answer that. And most of this is my opinion, my experiences. Other people may tell you different things. But I've been doing this for more than 35 years, and I've sat back and watched and listened, and I've represented a lot of people in thousands of cases, my firm, and we've sued a lot of social workers. So let me tell you, how can you remove their qualified immunity? This happened in these police abuse cases. They want to remove qualified immunity for the police officer that beats the shit out of you, claiming self-defense or that you were an unruly person. So it's the same for social workers. Qualified immunity started, in my humble opinion, to save the government money.
Yeah.
Okay, to not make government actors like social workers or police officers responsible for their negligent actions. Okay, now notice I said negligent because with qualified immunity, generally you can't sue a government actor like a social worker for negligence. Oh, I made a mistake,
Mm.
right? The reason why the state of Washington passed that law back in the 80s was because they were getting sued so much and paying so much money out for social workers that were doing, admittedly crazy things, that they had to find a way to cut that liability back, cut the amount of money that they were now paying people out for, social workers. I joke and tell people, before that California Supreme Court, if the social worker looked at you wrong, you could sue her,
Or if
right?
you look at the social worker wrong, they definitely take your kids from you. So you
So,
always have to be in line with what they say.
so it was a negligence standard. After the Supreme Court said, "Oh, that's constitutional. The state can limit your right on who to sue and how to sue." All right. Every state in the union passed that law, including California. So now California, who goes from paying out millions and millions and millions of dollars every year for negligent social workers, cuts that back because now you can only sue the social worker for malicious fraud, you know, telling intentional lies.
Right,
That's more. So negligence is here.
right,
Maliciousness and fraud is up here. You can't
right,
sue down here now. You have to
right.
be up here. And that means that you have a harder case,
Well,
right?
I think, well, see, in my case, one of the ER worker, when she came and she took the kids, the thing that came out of her mouth was, and I quote, "You are a felon with a narcotics offense on your record. You don't have an expungement, and you are not within your right to decline any kind of drug testing." Now, put a pin in that. I don't have a felony offense on my record. I'm not a narcotics offender. And it
But
says it
even
in the report, even.
but even if you were at that stage of the case, you didn't have to drug test.
Right, right. So that's, I mean, and she had told me in her interview, "You're within your right to decline," because I was going to do it for her. I said, "Okay, that's fine. I'll go and drug test." She goes, "Yeah, but you're completely within your right to decline."
Hmm.
So I'm thinking, oh, well, okay, then I guess I decline. Like I don't know what you're leading me on here, so I'm gonna go with, okay, I'll decline. And then 2 weeks later, she came with a warrant to remove my children.
Right.
So it's kind of like, well, why did you do that? I was going to do it for you. So why'd you tell me not to? But it felt like she really just wanted to remove them. So, and then she told me, no, it's going to take all three of them. So we're going to split them up into foster care homes. All three of them. They're
Right.
getting split up. And I
You,
said, but my parents want them. Well, they didn't call me back in time, so they don't get them. My dad's a police officer, for one. So he was taken aback by this entire thing because he's dealt with this before. And he's like, "I'm standing right here. I want my grandchildren. Give me my grandchildren." Nope, nope. You didn't call us back in time. They had called the day before. And my dad's a police officer, so he was working until, he didn't have time to call them back right away. And my mom was also at work. So it was kind of like they just doomed us right from the beginning.
Cassandra, what were you going to say? I saw you raising your hand.
Oh, isn't it allowed to separate? Aren't
Isn't
they
it
You would
allowed
what?
to
think,
separate the children?
yeah, that's what they say in the book, the handbook.
Well,
Yeah,
technically,
isn't that like part of the foster kids' rights? Is that for their siblings not to be taken away from them?
Right.
It's in the
Yes.
foster kids' Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
I believe I took a class on
Sure
that. So
too.
that's
I'm pretty
why.
sure too. That's why I was beside myself when she was like, "And by the way, we're separating them. We're gonna put all three of them in different foster homes." I'm like, my daughter's one, and she was attached to the hip to me.
Unless they're causing problems with each other, which I'm pretty sure your kids weren't old enough to cause problems with each other, they're not really supposed to separate the children because it's against their rights.
Right. This
I
woman
thought.
had it
I don't
out.
know.
I really feel like she did.
Well, Cassandra, let me say this. In a perfect world, people follow law to the T.
Yeah.
People give foster children their rights. Now, do we live in a perfect world?
No,
No.
because my kids' rights have been violated plenty of times.
And guess what?
And that's why I took the class.
If you're a person like a foster child and your rights are being violated, what do? Probably
Call
nothing.
the abundance person.
I tried that.
You're
They
supposed
told me,
to.
here's another phone number. You can try this one.
Let me get something straight. The ombudsman works for the county.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. They get their check from the county.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think they're going to do?
They're going to side with the
Nothing.
You know what they do? Let me tell you what they do really well. Okay. They calm you down.
Mm-hmm.
So you quit complaining and accept the screwing you just got.
Yeah.
That's their job. Now,
that's what happened.
You think that they're supposed to go out, shake the trees, and do something.
Mm-mm.
Okay, please, you got it all wrong. The purpose of government is to control its citizens so that they don't revolt, they don't riot, and they pay their taxes.
That's true.
That's the purpose of government. We want to live in a civilized society.
Yeah.
Now, if you believe that, think about CPS. This is, what I'm constantly shocked about. And I don't say this to people. They call me, they tell me the story, how they got effed over by the social workers. And I believe the stories. I've heard enough of them. But they expect something to change because they are pointing out all the wrongdoings by the social worker. Nothing is going to change if you just complain. You complain, okay, you're right. Now what? I said that to a guy yesterday. He got highly offended. We had an hour-long conversation about how he got screwed over, and he would ask me, like Miss G asked me, can they do that?
They did.
Yeah, they can do it. They did it, right?
Yeah.
He was shocked and upset that I wasn't shocked and upset about his story. What he didn't know is I've heard that story 10,000 times.
Yeah.
And at the end, I said, okay, we got your story. Now, what do you want to do about it? I don't know. He hadn't gotten to that part because I was the first person that listened to him complain for an hour.
Mm.
His attorney didn't listen to him, right? His counselor wouldn't listen to him about it. His wife wouldn't listen to him about it. The kids that were gone, they were taken. Nobody in his family wanted to hear about it. The people at work didn't want to hear about it. So he finally found me. I listened, and I asked him what he wanted to do. He didn't know because he hadn't found anybody that listened to it. He hadn't processed that part of it.
See, I've found people to listen, but then they say, well, there's nothing you can do.
There's a lot you can do.
And I'm going, well, there has to be something. You can't tell me that this is okay for these people to do that. I mean, they're not just affecting adults. These are kids. They're children. And they want their parents. In some cases, yes, they should come in and save the day. But not in my kids. They were happy, healthy, vibrant kids that now have tics, like nervous tics. And they have nightmares now. They wake up in the middle of the night. My daughter's screaming, because she's still traumatized by it. And that bothers me. If anything, I don't even care about justice for myself, but for them. I want them to have their justice, because their family dynamic was ripped apart completely by these people, and they thought it was fine to do that.
Miss G, I want to tell you something. Yesterday, last evening, probably about 7:30. So 7:30 p.m. on a Saturday night, I get a text. It was from a gentleman, a father, who we spoke to maybe 3 weeks ago. And, he wanted some legal advice at that time. And I told him what I thought he should do. And I don't know if he told you or told me, that he wasn't going to hire us because he believed that the judge was going to do the right thing at the next hearing. Okay. And, I said, okay, good luck. God bless. I wish you well. I hope everything turns out for you. Well, apparently Friday was that next hearing. And he's texting me how outraged he was at what happened in court. And now, of course, he wants to hire me. And I told him, I said, I appreciate that. I said, I can represent you. I said, but getting the kids back, it's going to be harder now because the judge has already made decisions and findings of fact and law against you. I can only change that on appeal. Minimum 6 months.
Mm-hmm. See, I had 2 judges on mine. My judge got switched out halfway in the middle of my case. Then I got a brand new judge.
That
so
happens
confusing.
a lot. That happens a lot.
I'm like, but she made a decision, so this other judge made this decision, and now this judge is here, and we're like starting all over again. It was a very confusing process.
I want to mention this to everyone. I just came out with a new book, and it's about civil rights litigation against social workers. And it's eventually probably going to be sold online or on Amazon and stuff. But I mentioned to everyone yesterday that if you wanted a free digital copy of the book, to contact Grace, our producer, Grace at vincentwdavis.com, and Grace will email you a free copy. Okay?
That's amazing. I'm going to ask Grace for that.
The book is a little longer than what I wanted. I was shooting for, less than 100 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out it's 150 pages. But I had so much to say. And the funny thing is, I didn't say everything that I wanted to say. And some of the books that I use to research are multi-volume sets of books, thousands and thousands of pages on how to sue for civil rights violations, generally in federal court. So if anybody wants a copy of that book, it's a good starting place. It's good reading. I wrote it for non-lawyers. So just go ahead and email Grace, the producer of the show, Grace at vincentwdavis.com. I was texting with Grace last night, and I said, has anybody, emailed you? And she said, yeah, 5 people have emailed me and wanted the book. So I'm saying it again. If anybody today watching, it's a free book. It's something maybe that you want to take a look at. And, if you don't like it, delete it and throw it away.
I want it. I'm going to get it. That's for sure.
All right. Now, I said yesterday that I would do this, and we're running out of time, but I'm going to do it, even if we have to go over a little bit. I was going to talk about the second hearing that you have. Yesterday, I talked about the first, the detention hearing. So if you didn't see that, find the video on YouTube or Facebook, whatever social media platform you're watching on, and it should be there, the tape. But here's the second, and it's called the jurisdictional hearing. And it's kind of a misnomer because most courtrooms, at least in California, do the jurisdictional, which is number 2, and the third hearing, which is number 3, the dispositional hearing. They do them together. But in explanation, I'm going to explain them separately. And then when you wrap your mind around those things, we'll talk about how and what you should do when they combine the hearings. Okay, so the jurisdictional hearing is a hearing where the judge is going to decide whether the allegations in the petition, in California, the 300 petition, WIC 300, if it's going to be used against you. I mean, if it's going to be true or not true. So let's say, for example, Ariana, the petition says you're a mass murderer and therefore you shouldn't have your kids. All right. At the jurisdictional hearing, the social worker has to prove by a preponderance of evidence that that's true and that makes you a risk to children. Okay. Now, at the first hearing, the judge accepted that allegation as true. Why? Because that's what the law says he has to do. Again, if you don't like something, change the law. How do you change the law? You vote, you organize. But I digress. So, Cassandra, if the allegation in the petition says you're a risk to your children because of a domestic violence incident last month or last year or 10 years ago, sometimes I see those kind of allegations, the social worker has to prove that. All right? Prove that with evidence, witness testimony, documents. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people don't get. Okay, this is a pro tip. Just because the social worker says it doesn't mean that it's true. You have the constitutional right to have a trial and challenge the social worker by cross-examination of her report and all of her evidence. And you have the right to call witnesses and to subpoena witnesses into the courtroom to testify to show the social worker is wrong, is lying, or doesn't know about certain other evidence.
Right.
Okay? Now, I rarely see people having a contested jurisdictional hearing / trial. I rarely see it.
Yeah, my attorney didn't say anything about any of that. I didn't get to have my social worker cross-examined on the stand or anything about what she said about me put up for.
So you know what that means? That means if you don't challenge the social worker, you lose.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Even if you would have won if you had a trial. Right. So once those findings and orders are made against you, it's like the 10 Commandments carved in stone.
Yeah.
Whether it was true or not, the judge made the findings.
Right.
Now, nobody is supposed to help you in these cases except your attorney. So if something unfair happens, you can only blame two people. You and or your attorney.
Right.
That's it.
I would be in there.
Okay.
Right.
A lot of people call me and they want to blame the social worker. They want to blame the judge. Judges are supposed to make decisions on the evidence before them.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's it. If you come to the courtroom game, the trial, and you don't have any evidence, you lose. You lose. That's how the courtroom game works. Evidence. Right. I say that to people all the time. They kind of look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? Because everybody thinks they know the law, the Constitution. But in California, there's a book. It's about this thick. Rice paper thin pages. It's the California Code of Evidence. And then, the rules and the cases that explain that code, can go on forever. You can make a career out of trying to learn it and explain it. Okay? Now.
Definitely.
So when you go to the jurisdictional hearing and you don't put on any witnesses or present any documents, you lose. Now, here's the other thing. If you have a jurisdictional hearing or any trial and your attorney gets up and, does that, talks, argues. In California and probably in most states, that is not evidence. You
Right.
can't win with the lawyer just arguing.
That makes
I'm
sense.
talking about 999 times out of 1,000. Have I ever seen a lawyer win a case by just arguing? Yes, I have. I have seen it. But it's a low probability of success strategy. And if you are talking about your kids, you probably want to go with the high probability of strategy. And that is present your witnesses and present your evidence,
Right.
your documents. And if you got to subpoena people, that's your constitutional right. They got to show up. They got to bring the documents.
Right.
Are they going to be upset? Probably. But you're talking about your kids.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the jurisdictional hearing is for the judge to decide where the allegations are true or partially true, and if you're a risk. Sometimes the allegations don't, even if true, don't prove that you're a risk. Let me give you an example. Your Honor, 30 years ago, Cassandra was a drug addict. Okay? That may be true, but it doesn't prove that you're a risk today.
Right.
Okay? And there's a case in California called In Re Rocco, ROCCOM. And I suggest that everyone that's listening Google that case number or case and find it and read it. You know what, Georgette, I think what we're going to start doing is we're going to start having copies of these cases where people can just download from the social media platform. They don't have to look it up. But this is what Rocco M says. At the jurisdictional hearing, the social worker has to prove on that date, the date of the hearing, not the date when the case was filed. On that date, you're a risk to your children. So if they said Cassandra 30 years ago was a drug addict, which might be true, how does it prove that Cassandra is a risk today, 30 years later? They have to show that she's still doing drugs.
Right.
And a lot of times in these allegations, there's no way the social worker could prove this if challenged. Okay? There are some cases that are out there that support this proposition. Cassandra is a heroin addict. Therefore, her kid should be taken away. There are some appellate cases that say, even if true that she's a heroin addict today, that doesn't prove that she's a
Right.
risk to the children.
Right.
Because, listen, in our society, drug usage, alcoholism is prevalent, but there is such a thing called what do they call it? A functioning addict.
Correct.
So this is not what the law calls strict liability. If heroin addict, then you lose your kids. They have to show that you are not
Right.
able to care for your kids and that you're a risk. Now, if you're using heroin, does that go a long way in proving it? Yes, it does. But what if you get on the stand and say, well, I've been a heroin addict since the kid was born. And for 5 years, I raised that child. Nothing happened. Went to school every day, A student, always clean, always well-fed, always, bathed, well-dressed. So then you got to scratch your head and say, well, okay, you might be a heroin addict, but apparently you can take care of the kid.
That's why I get a little bit confused about my case, just because it went to that point so quickly where they were removing the children from me without putting me in services or a family or anything like that. They just immediately went for the removal warrant. And there really wasn't any basis for it, really. It just seemed like the worker had it out for me. And even my dad can back me up on that. My whole entire family can. So,
But here's the thing. Ariana, did you challenge anything the social worker said at the detention hearing or at the jurisdictional hearing or the dispositional hearing. And by challenge mean, did you put on witnesses? Did you get on the stand?
I did get on the stand.
Okay.
I did. And the dad and my mother. And they all testified that I was, a good mother and everything like that. But they weren't asking questions that really even pertains to my case. They were asking about Facebook. And why that was prevalent, I still don't know. But that's what they were asking my mom about. And then because I was sharing my story and they didn't like that. So that's all they asked her about. That's all they asked me about. And I went to my lawyer because I was like, yo, this isn't right. This isn't right. This isn't right. Did he do his job on his end and put them on the stand? No, he didn't. And now I feel very, very wronged by that. Ineffective counsel type of thing.
Did you appeal?
I didn't even know I could appeal. So
here's the harsh rule that I say every day and people get pissed off at me. I didn't accept this for maybe the first 5-6 years of being a lawyer. But this is the rule, and this is the way people act. Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Right.
What a harsh rule.
It is, but it isn't.
So when you say, I didn't know I could appeal.
Yeah, I was all entrusting to my attorney, which was my fault. I should have been more aware of what I could and couldn't do. I honestly was in such a whirlwind because I didn't think that this was possible. I'd still, what?
Right.
Kind of thing.
You're still trying to accept the whole fact that you're being treated like this as an American citizen.
Right. I'm like, isn't there laws or something? And there really isn't. But
I see that all the time. And one of the things I notice about, and there's no way that I can explain this because people are in their minds where they are. No amount of talking by me is going to convince them otherwise. What I see a lot of people doing is being outraged and thinking, the judge is going to do the right thing. I had another lady the other day tell me, I'm going to trust in God. This will be okay.
Yep.
Now, I'm a religious person. I'm Christian, was raised Christian, still practicing Christian. I believe in God. Does God show himself or herself in these cases and give you these kids back? I would have to say no.
No.
I mean, we could have a 5-hour conversation on why, but that would be a waste of time as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You want your kids back, there's a certain amount of things you're going to have to do, strategize about, certain things you're going to have to accept. I did a video one time on YouTube. You can find it. It's called What is Justice? And people think that they know what justice is. They really believe that. And, if you're a 35-year-old mother, to change that perception in you after 35 years, that's a hell of a thing to do. And it can't be done in most cases. So you proceed in the case thinking you know what justice is, and you have no idea what justice is. Ms. G, you had a comment?
Yes, I sure do. The comment that you just made right now about God not being in court, helping people with cases. God sent us so many people to help us. God didn't say, sit there and do nothing. There's a story my dad used to tell me and my mom where somebody was drowning. A person was drowning in the ocean, and he kept telling God, help me, help me, help me. Are you with me? Are you going to help me? And then God sends him so many different people, boats and, rescue people. Say, yeah, come on, come in. I'll take you. Come on. I'm saving you. And they're like, no, I'm waiting for God. I'm waiting for God. I'm waiting for God. Then he died. And then he said, God, why didn't you help me? He said, I sent you so many people to help you.
Mm-hmm.
You
chose,
right. So you chose to be where you are. So the point I'm making right now, I'm trying to make is that Mr. Davis is right in somewhat, but God is with us. But as like I said, God does send you people to help you. Especially like if you call me, for example, and I tell you what's up, then you choose to do what you want to do. That's on you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you guys, when you call me, not all of you, some of you believe me, but the other side don't believe what I say until months and months later when they're literally going to their TPR stage. So, and then they say, Miss G, you were right. But that doesn't mean anything to me. I know I'm right. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it. The problem is people don't do their own research. And they think because they're great parents, they're going to get their children back.
No.
That's not true. I'm sorry. Mr. Davis thinks a certain way. As an attorney with me, I believe that the reason that CPS divides the family is because they're demonic entities. And these demons, after division, because when you divide the family apart, you become weaker.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you need the support more and more right now. But with adoptions, especially of children under, infants and, under 5 or 7 years old, they're easily adopted. They get more money from adoption. So guess what they're aiming for?
Adoption.
Adoption.
Mm-hmm.
Then what I see them happening is that they return the children, some cases, they return the children to the mom for a few months, 6 months max, maybe. Then they come back and say there's new allegations. It's going to come back and recycle the children back. So the mother enjoyed them for 6 months, but then there's new allegations. The mother's like, from whom? Who did the allegations? We can't say. It's confidential.
Well, they did tell me who told me mine.
Well, no, they say it's confidential when they're the ones who
They're the ones that are doing it. Yeah.
Right. But they say who made it if it's made by somebody else.
Of course.
Either way,
Which is illegal too.
so when you open Pandora's box, you're opening the door to the devil to walk in, and don't expect the devil to be uninvited when you walk him in. So the bottom line is, do your research. People like me, Attorney Davis, Cassandra, we know what we're saying. Literally. And I want you guys to be mindful and be, do your research. Do your research. That's very important. Okay?
All right. So, in wrapping up this whole jurisdictional hearing thing, if the judge makes a decision that you don't like, you are entitled to appellate review. And generally, you have to do it after the dispositional hearing, and you have to appeal, at least in California, the jurisdictional and the dispositional hearing together.
Is there a time frame that you can do that in? Like, do they mandate a time frame?
The rules mandate. Look, in the law, there's a time frame for everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's a time frame for going to the bathroom. Okay. In California, to appeal a juvenile case at this stage is 60 days. Okay. Now, there are all kinds of exceptions, especially at the end of the disposition hearing. They don't give you reunification services. Then the type of appeal is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And totally different time frames. And I'll talk about that tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Actually, not 9 p.m. What time do we do the show? 8 p.m.
7.
No, 7. Yeah. 7 p.m. We'll talk about the dispositional hearing. But I want you to know that I want you to start thinking about that, because things you do at the trial, you should be also planting the seeds for a good appeal. Okay. In case the judge rules against you, you need to have set that case up for a good appeal. All right. Because there's no guarantee that the judge is going to rule in your favor. The judge has the discretion to say, you know what, Ariana, I don't believe a word you said.
Yep.
And I believe the social worker.
Yep.
And therefore, I'm going to rule against you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The judge wearing the black robe, we've given that judge that power.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad. That's just the way the law is. Mm-hmm. Sun rises in the east, sets in the west. It's just the way it is.
Of course.
Now, I can tell you how to get around it to make these decisions beneficial to you But it's different for every case. There's not just one stock, thing.
Hmm. Especially
And
mine. Mine's a whole whirlwind of stuff.
all right. So before we go, we're coming to the end of the show. Miss Cassandra Woodard, did you have any questions or comments that you wanted to make?
No,
Okay.
I'm
Great.
bye.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I cut you off. Go ahead.
I was like, just bye.
Just what?
Bye.
Just bye.
Oh, bye. Miss Ariana Hubbard, did you have any questions or comments?
For all those parents out there that are dealing with CPS, if you can, definitely go with an attorney before you speak with anybody. Just get yourself protected.
Miss G, did you have any comments or questions?
As Ariana said, I agree with her 100%. But I want you guys, like I said earlier, please lawyer up. Lawyer up. If you have to sell your vehicles or live with your brothers or sisters until you know, be able to lawyer up, do it. Do not depend on the court-appointed attorneys. They're useless. They're free for you, but they get paid by the county. I mean, by the state. So they get paid whether they work on your case or not. I know you're going to disagree with me, Mr. Davis. This is my time.
Okay.
Okay, I know you're going to I know you. I do. But they're useless. They get paid by the state. They don't do anything. They get paid whether they work on your case or not.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes people think we're sales. We're not sales. I hate sales. We're not sales. We offer services. If you guys think it's sales, then you're delusional and very weak-minded. Because when you call a law firm, we don't get paid by the state. We get paid by offering services. Remember that. So you guys need to keep in mind our attorneys has to get paid for their services. If they don't get paid for their services, they can't provide services. Court-appointed attorneys don't provide services, but these mother F's get paid for it.
Yeah.
That's the best job there is. I should, it just pisses me off. I get really upset and passionate because they take advantage of people. We pay for them to be there. We pay for these judges. We pay for them because our tax dollars is what pays them, is what funds them. It's what funds these demonic entities. And the judges are not the ones in control. I don't care. This is my opinion. Mr. Davis can disagree with me if he will. I'm used to it. But the social workers are the ones who wear the black robes. The judges go by what the social workers recommend, and they are not going to bite the hand that feeds them. With all the funding that comes in, is because the social workers are collecting children. Their paycheck, incentive bonuses that they get for every child they receive or they remove that year. A social worker can make between $187,000 to $197,000 a year. If anybody tells you they make less than that, they're liars. I checked it out. I looked at it. I researched for the last 4 months now. They make more money than a regular attorney.
By far.
Yeah. So
All right.
that's. Oh, okay. So you're interrupting me. All right.
No, I thought you finished.
I guess I will now.
No, keep going.
Are you sure? Okay. So just keep in mind, lawyer up. If you have to borrow money from people, borrow money from people. A lot of people think you can get a loan. CPS doesn't work for you to get a loan. They don't wait for you, until you get a loan. They are 40 steps ahead of you.
Oh, yeah.
Or if not more. And then all of a sudden, by the time you get approved with a loan, if you get approved for a loan, then they're terminating your unification services. Remember, they change social workers on you guys rapidly.
Oh, yeah. I had 6.
Yeah. Each
I
one
see.
will have their own opinion. So you know what I'm talking about, Ariana. And
Mhm.
each one of you guys say the same thing to me. You guys receive so many social workers because each one has a different opinion. So
They're trying to
you
make
can
you
say,
forget.
oh, the social worker before you said this. No, there is no evidence because it was verbally done.
Mhm.
And also remember this, keep in mind this. When a social worker tells you verbally in a domestic violence case, it's okay for you to meet the father and co-parent together. That's a lie and it's a trap. You know why? Because that social worker changes. Then they send you another one immediately after that person says that. Then when you go visit the dad with the children to co-parent, like the social worker said, peaceful contact. Then the other social worker says, oh, mom, you failed to protect. We're taking the children's.
Mhm.
Okay. This is all a tactic strategy of a demon. They will tell you one thing and they will move and do another. If it's not in writing, don't believe them. And I'm telling you the God honest truth. Cassandra knows what I'm saying. Ariana knows what I'm saying. Most of you guys know what I'm saying. So just keep that in mind. That's all I have to say, Attorney Davis.
Thank you for those words. I want to mention that anybody that wants to check out my website, check out fcps.lawyer, and the F is fight CPS, not the other thing. But
It should be
FCPS,
the other one, but it's fight.
Sure.
fcps.lawyer. It's one of
We
those
all
like
believe that one.
double entendre things. Also, if you email Grace at vincentwdavis.com, and you ask for the free book, the new civil rights book, also ask for a digital copy of my book, The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. Um, that book is a little shorter, but I think it gives a really good background. And everybody that has a CPS case should read that book because it gives you a general overall view, of the landscape. A lot of people go into this, they have no idea what they've gotten themselves into.
Yeah.
And I think this book provides you just a landscape. And I wrote it for parents and relatives, not for lawyers, not for judges. So take a look at that book. It's free. You can buy it on Amazon if you want, or you can get a free copy by asking Grace, and she'll email it to you. Ms. G, I want to thank you very much for being on the show. Uh, I would like to speak to you, Ms. G, afterwards.
Oh
Um,
God.
after the show. No, it has
What
nothing to.
I
It has nothing to do with the show. Um, Miss Cassandra, thank you for being on. Appreciate it. Miss Ariana, thank you for being on. If you're interested in being a host on one of my shows on my different platforms, I would love to have you. You have the experience. You seem very intelligent, well spoken. So I
Mhm.
think you could. I think you could help a lot of people because you've been through the mill. You've
Yes.
got you've earned your stripes, so to speak.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
That's
I appreciate
and
that.
that's unfortunate, really, but
It is, but thank you for
yeah.
noticing.
But
Ariana, can you give me a call later if that's okay?
Of course. I would
Just
love to.
call and actually, you know what, Cassandra, you spoke to Ariana, right?
And Grace did, I think.
Grace, I'll get your information
Grace
from
did.
Grace. I'll call you.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful.
All right.
Yes, sure. Of
all right.
course.
So thank you, everyone. We'll see you
Thank
tomorrow at
you. Bye-bye.
7 p.m. Stay online, Miss G.
What?
Stay on the line, Miss G.